Assalamualaikum and a very good day to all. Welcome to our class. I'm Dr. Fahim. Today I'm going to cover on the topic of requirement validation. As a lesson recap, last time we already learned that why we need to validate. So there are 4 reasons why we need to validate. First is the validity checks, in which proposed requirement must fulfill stakeholders' needs. And then the second is consistency check, in which we don't want to have any redundant description of the same function. Third is for the completeness check, is all the necessary requirement available in the document. And finally, a reality check, in which is it doable with the current technology. As for today's lesson outline, we are going to cover with 3 major topics. First is validation against analysis. We will see the difference in analysis with validation by seeing the process execution and also the main question related to the validation and also analysis. Then we look into the requirement validation in the perspective of input and output, and finally the major topic is how we do the review process for the requirement validation. Okay, first, what is validation and what is analysis? Okay, in terms of process execution, we look first into the analysis. Okay, analysis is done during the raw requirements that are elicited from the stakeholders, in which, if you notice, during the requirement elicitation, we require all the requirements, unprocessed requirements, that we call as raw requirements. So here we analyze all the requirements. So therefore, when you analyze, the key question arises with analysis is, have we got the right requirement? For instance, you want to do an inventory management system. Did we get the right requirement for the inventory management system? For instance, let's say we have a login process. Did we get the right requirement? In which, for instance, did we get the right requirement login for related actors such as the manager, the hostel manager, or the clerk, so on and so forth. And then when we look into validation, it's a little bit different in terms of when it is done. Okay, for validation, the execution is done at the final draft of the requirements document. As an example, you can say our document, which is SRS, Software Requirement Specification, is already a completed document in which we have all the modules, all the function requirements, all the non-function requirements, the diagrams, the hardware, and so the software specification together with the interface design. Okay, and it depends on how you define your requirement document later on when you are working in the real world. But in terms of the execution, once you have the final draft of the SRS, which is being agreed by the customer, the client, the stakeholders, and also the development team, then we'll do the validation. Okay, so at that point of process, the question that will be is, have we got the requirements right? That means for each module, do we have the requirements being mentioned correctly? For instance, let's say we're using login process. For the login process, are we doing the correctly the process in which, for instance, we are allowing user to use username and password? Are we also allowing user to do login with Google credentials? So therefore, how it is done, or how it is the function is executed, is what being seen in this process. From the input, which we have the stakeholders from the organization knowledge and also from the organizational standards. We plan the review with the individuals, and then later on, once it has been identified, the stakeholders has been identified, we distribute the materials. So materials includes the SRS, and also other stakeholders might bring their own materials, such as the company policy, regulations, and so on. Once the material has been distributed, okay, the stakeholders will go through the documents, and then we'll prepare for the review. So this is crucial, since Preparation involves a lot of time in reviewing, reading the document, understanding the document, understanding all the materials prior having a review meeting with everybody. Okay, and then once the review is being held, so there all the stakeholders and relevant parties will discuss and will validate the document. Okay, they go through one by one each requirements, each function requirements, each non-function requirements, each interface design, each element of in the document to make sure it is met with the what the stakeholders want. Okay, once that has been done, we have to understand that we will produce some early results, and then from the main meeting we'll produce a follow-up meeting based on the discussion held at the from the review meeting. Okay, and then in the follow-up meeting we will discuss and finalize the problem list and also action needed to overcome this problem listed from the previous meeting. From the follow-up meeting, okay, we will produce the list of problems and also the action needed to be done, and then the relevant project development team will look into the stated problem list and also the action needed to be done, and then all the revision will be done in the next process, in which is revise the document. So this document or SRS will be revised based on the output from the previous process, and once it's done it will be verified, in which the team that will be verifying it is the stakeholders that are involved in the review meeting at the first and also the during the follow-up meeting. So once we already have verified the document, that means when we say verify, it's not verbal agreement, but it's already signed and agreed upon. I mean the changes that has been done in the SRS. So when we have gone through this, the document is verified, and that document will be the milestone and it will be used at the next process of software methodology, which is system development. That's all for the topic today. So as a recap, we already went through at the last lesson why we need the requirement validation, and then we already learned the requirement validation input and output, what are the things needed to go through the review process, and what is produced at the output, okay, in which we produce the list of problems of the SRS document and action needed to be taken. And then we will go through the review process, in which you have step by step from the preparation, the execution, and also the verification of the SRS document. I hope everybody understood for the lesson today. See you again. Bye.